Thanks for tuning in to the episode of The Aydin Show, sponsored by our friends at Casa Homes. Enjoy the show. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Aydin Show. The word Aydin means enlightened. That's exactly our goal. We're here to share knowledge, wisdom, and enlighten our youth. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm Ahmet Uluch, and today's guest is Dr. Stef Keris. How are you, brother?
Alhamdulillah. Wa alaikum assalam. How are you doing, Akhi?
Pretty good, pretty good. It's about 8:15 p.m. here. We've got a big time difference between Australia and England. I think it's roughly about 11 hours. What's the time over there currently at the
It's now 9:35 in the morning, so 9:35 a.m. So
moment?
we just get up and you're going to bed, right?
Pretty much. Dr. Stef, let's talk a little bit about you and who you are and exactly what you do, I guess. Can you shed us a little bit of light in regards to some of the things that you've done?
Sure. Bismillah. Salatu salam ala Rasulullah. Now, very simple. First of all, I was born in Athens. I was born in Greece, indeed. So in the motherland. But then my mother decided to export me, to take me back to Germany. She was actually in Germany before already. So she went there, she met my father there, they got married, and I was the first child, and she decided to give birth to me in her home country, go back to Athens. We stayed there, I think when I was 2 or 3 months old or something like this, she took me to Germany. So basically all my life I grew up in Germany, grew up in a city called Aachen, which is quite famous for its university. It's a city which has 250,000 inhabitants, of which a quarter are actually students. So it's a student city. And very comfortable as a student, very comfortable as a youngster, as a foreigner, actually. It was quite good growing up in Aachen. It was really no big issues, no big issues with regards to racism and all this. Yeah. But still, it was Germany. And I did experience quite some issues as non-German, although I grew up there since I was 2 months old. Actually, I'd been living all my life in Germany. Still, I was considered a Greek, and it was always made clear to me. That time, especially in the 80s, the way it was, there was the bilateral agreements between the German state and the Greek state, that Greek children in Germany had to actually follow the primary and the secondary school system of Greece. So get a Greek education, and then once you finished with your high school education, you go back to Greece and you do your university studies in Greece. That was the idea. So it was really kept like the second infrastructure. Next to German, there are the Greeks, and the Greeks go back to Greece. That was the idea. Yeah. Now, my mother broke with the system, and she decided to actually, because she said, listen, we're going to stay here. So why should he not stay in Germany and study in Germany at the university if he wants to? And I remember it was a whole issue that time. Even the ministry was involved. And yes, it was a big issue at the time, until my mother then pushed her way through, alhamdulillah, and decided to put me on a German high school. That means in Germany, the way it goes, the German system is 4 years primary school. So from year 5 on, you go to high school. So the way it was, I did my 4 years primary school in Greece, or in a Greek primary school, and then we decided to get me on the year 5. From year 5 on, I visited basically a German high school. My German was not up to scratch, of course. It was very difficult to cope with the German, simply because I was really clearly following a Greek system. And that's why my Greek most probably still nowadays is very good, simply because I was raised with Greek, although I was in Germany. So I had to improve my German language. So what happened then, obviously in the first year, I struggled a lot in year 5 in high school. But that again showed me a little bit, I had always this feeling, I'm different. And I always had this feeling that I never belonged to the German society. I always felt I need to go back to Greece. That was the idea. So I was very, very close to my Greek being. Yeah. And it did not help, of course, that I was in year 5, year 6, and they were mocking me because my German was not good enough. So basically what happened then was I did improve my German. Alhamdulillah, I was a hard worker. And I improved also my grades, everything, alhamdulillah. And because they gave me a year, they said, if it doesn't work in year 5, then you go basically to a Greek school or whatever else we're going to do. Alhamdulillah, it worked. Year 6, I went on, mashallah. It went so far that year 10 in the same school, I changed schools. And I went to a much better school in the city center of Aachen, where I finished my high school degree, alhamdulillah. And well, I studied at the University of Aachen as well. I stayed in the same city and I studied there. after I'd been a year to Greece and I did my military service and everything. And during that time, that period of time, I was looking into, because many of my friends in the German school were of Turkish background, Arab background, Africans, and I came across Islam. And I always liked the difference. You know, anything that was different to Germany, I liked. Because, as I said, I had this kind of feeling that I didn't belong there.
Because Dr. Stef Keris, yeah, that's as Greek as you get it. Now, now you're saying Alhamdulillah. So for some of the people that don't know who you are, you reverted to Islam. What was so? Run us through that. Run us through how that all took place.
Yeah. Well, basically, exactly the time period that I was talking about, I came across Islam as a faith. First, it was having Muslim friends who were not practicing, unfortunately. Many Turkish people do not practice, as you know, unfortunately, and unfortunately in Germany, even less so. So I had many Turkish friends. I took them home and we were good mates. And my father, my mother, they were like open to that. I mean, they had no problem with that, no issue.
I've never been to Germany. I do know that there is a huge population of Turks there. So I do know there's a roughly 3 to 5 million Turkish citizens that live there, or people that have migrated there, been born there with a Turkish background. What is it? Is it like a city that the Turks all hang out in? Is that what it's like up there?
No. No, it's spread out throughout Germany. I mean, Germany is a big country. For European standards, it's quite a big country. Not for Australian standards, but for European standards, it's quite a big country. But if you imagine Hamburg, Munich, Berlin, Cologne, these are massively big cities, all of them more than 1 million inhabitants at least. And in these bigger cities, you will find a very high percentage of immigrants, especially of Turkish background. Nowadays, I mean, indeed, between 4 and 5 million of Turkish background, half of them have the German citizenship in the meanwhile. But nowadays, we do have, of course, also many other immigrants coming from the Arab world, from Syria, from Lebanon, from Africa, from Asia. So nowadays, the population is much more mixed than it was that time when I grew up in Germany. So that time, the biggest population, the majority of immigrants were actually of Turkish origin.
Okay,
so
you made some friends. You obviously, you were around the Turks.
Absolutely, many friends. I even
was there any disputes? Was there any disputes between the Turkish people and yourself? You being Greek, especially. Did you guys ever get into any?
We were just making fun. It was really not like this. Don't imagine that you're going to fight each other or something. Not at all. It was really in Germany the way it was and is still nowadays. We grow up with each other. Absolutely. We visit each other. We even go to each other's shops. Many Turks have, these small supermarkets type of shops, So we go ourselves as Greeks. We used to go and get our bread there. My mother would do that. We used to get even our meat there and everything. So that was never an issue. On the other side, the Greeks, most of them are tailors. So they have tailor shops. So the Turks would come and get their clothes done. My mother was a tailor. So you have this. There's a clear interaction. And we would even, make fun of each other in a positive way. We would actually say things like, oh, yeah, absolutely no hostility at all. Really, absolutely not.
Very similar to how it is here in Australia. I mean, we're cultural. We have a huge population of Greeks, especially here in Melbourne. I think the numbers a little bit better than I do. I thought it was roughly around I thought it was about 500,000 Greeks in Australia, but I might be mistaken with that. I know that there is a huge population here in Melbourne. I do have a few Greek friends myself, and as you said, no hard feelings about the past or anything like that. We're born here, we're raised here, we get along very well.
Absolutely, it's the same thing. It's the same in the States, the same in Canada. Absolutely the same thing. I mean, you become part of the country, actually, the new country, and you're part of it more or less, even if you have a different background. Obviously, we all have a different background. Even the Germans, the white, pure kind of Germans, even they have a different background coming from Russia originally or Poland or whatever. So, no, that was never there. So that made me already, I was quite open-minded as a person already. I was and still am quite open-minded towards other religions, faiths, and cultures and civilizations. I loved traveling. I was young, of course. I couldn't travel alone, but we used to go every year down to Greece by car from Germany, and I enjoyed passing through Italy. I enjoyed passing through Switzerland and Austria. So I loved it. And my big dream that time was, as soon as I finished high school, I want to travel the world. And what I did indeed when I was 18, I traveled Europe. And I enjoyed it very much. But before that, indeed, during my time of my high school, I had all these friends of Muslim background, be it Turks, be it Arabs, and I was busy a little bit with the faith, but not really as much as I would have wanted to, maybe. Also because, as I said, they were not practicing, so they couldn't tell me themselves anything about Islam until I started telling them about Islam. And like, listen, isn't it like this, that fasting in Ramadan, it might be 29, might be 30 days. That you don't drink, you don't eat, all this stuff. I started explaining to them what I found out every day. So I would go back, I would read up on it, and then I would go and tell them, listen, Mustafa, Mahmoud, Muhammad, whatever, I found out yesterday about this and this about Islam. And most of them did not know what I was telling them, so they would go back themselves and and find out. So it was, if I think back now, it's actually quite pathetic, if you think of it, that a Greek has to come back and tell you about your deen, about such a deen, subhanAllah. So anyway, until it became very serious. I mean, I finished my high school, decided to go to the Greek army. We have to, 6 months for Greeks living abroad. Nowadays it's 3 months. That time it was still 6 months. So I decided to go to the Greek army. And where did they put me? They put me exactly at the border to Edirne. Basically, Edirne is a Turkish city exactly at the border to Greece. And I could hear the adhan 5 times a day. 5 times a day. Right in front of me, there was a big, massive masjid, the Suleymaniye Mosque, which was built by Mimar Sinan that time. So I could see all that every day in, day out. I could hear the adhan day in, day out. So it was again a reminder about Islam. And I was like, you know what I'm going to do, guys? As soon as we finish our service, I want to go over there and go and see Edirne. And they were like, why? For the women, right? I say, yeah, for the women, but still I want to go and see Turkey. And they were like, this guy's a bit crazy, So I just kind of, imagine now you're in the Greek army, obviously. You cannot say these things. If I think now back, it was a bit naive to think that everybody would be on my side. And, and in the end, I did go to Greece in the end. I did go to Turkey after I finished my military service. And I did pray in the masjids there, although I was not a Muslim yet. But I had this feeling, I had this longing for Islam, subhanAllah. So the masjids in Turkey, the mosques in Turkey, especially in Edirne and later in Istanbul, they did give me the feeling there is something. And I decided to go back to Germany and to start my studies. I started studying in 1992 at the university. And that's when I came across more Muslim brothers who were practicing. I went to an Islamic center in Aachen. And I used to go on a Friday Jummah without having said Shahada, until I decided once I said, yes, I'm going to say Shahada, I'm going to become Muslim, just to make it very short, of course, not to explain everything to you, but it took some months. And then later I decided to go still to Greece and make Shahada at the Mufti's place. So one of the Muftis, we have still 3 Muftis in the north of Greece. Yeah. And he decided to give me the Shahada, basically official paper that I became Muslim. So I'm officially Muslim also in Greece, alhamdulillah. So that's my story short, actually, more or less.
What was some of the reasons that led you up to it? Like, what was some of the things that you took away that really stuck with you early on and throughout that process that made you realize that, okay, I want to be a Muslim?
First, you know what it was? First it was just simply I had Lebanese friends and I used to visit them at home, and the only difference between them and us was really the language. And I did not see any difference between my Greek parents, my Greek relatives, with regard to their parents, their background, their Lebanese, subhanAllah. A Lebanese and a Greek in many ways were very much alike. But it's not only the Lebanese, it's the Arabs, the Turks. It is in general the Middle East. Greece really, if you look at the location of Greece, we are closer to the Middle East than we're to Europe. So the influence that the Ottomans have had on Greece for 500 years is not nothing. Talking about a very long period of time, 400 to 500 years, the Ottoman Empire having influenced Greece in such a way that if I showed you now a photo of Greek men sitting in a cafe somewhere in Greece, and you showed me a photo of a Turkish man sitting in a cafe, I would not be able to tell you the difference. I wouldn't be able to tell you which one is Turkey, which one is Greece. Nobody would. Now they look alike, they behave alike, they eat the same things basically. The only difference nowadays is really just the deen. And even that one with a very big population of Turks, unfortunately not practicing, even that is not even an issue anymore. So, because they don't practice anyway. So with regards to that, really there was no difference. And that attracted me very much first. After that, of course, it was the deen itself. I saw my friend Mulham, that time his name, I saw him being called by his older brother. I remember when we were at home to pray. I was like, praying? What is that, guys? What's wrong with you? What do you mean praying? So they explained to me that they are Muslims. And the first thing I said was, oh my God, I thought you were good guys. That's what I said. When I heard we are Muslims, I said, oh my God, I thought you were good guys. Imagine how deep this is. And this is something that I'm discussing with my wife actually on a daily basis. We should never forget, that was 30 years ago. We should never forget how we thought, although we were open-minded, I loved other cultures, other faiths, other people, but still I had this inside of me, the media, the people around me, my influence was telling me, oh my God, stay away from these Muslims. Okay, so that was inside of me. So the first thing that really just came out, oh my God, I thought you were good people. They started laughing. And I was embarrassed because I said this. I was like, subhanAllah, guys, I really didn't mean it. I didn't say subhanAllah, of course, but I said, I did not mean that, guys. I'm sorry, I did not mean that. That's when I realized myself how prejudiced I was, although I did not think I was. So I started really reading up on Islam. And I used to go back home, reading up again, as I did before when I was younger. And I started reading even some parts of the Quran. But I was more interested in the faith itself. I did not want to indulge with the Quran. I found it actually too difficult to understand. So it was more important for me to find out actually what is the faith itself, the commonalities between Greeks and Turks, the prayer. When I started seeing the very first time, when I saw these two brothers praying, I was like, wow. There is something, subhanAllah. When I saw the salah, when I saw them going up and down, ruku, sujud, I was like, there is something. And I was pushing it away. And then once I decided myself, on my own, I decided to go to the Islamic Center in Aachen, and I just, on a Jummah, and I just prayed with them up and down, and that was it for me. I just felt there is something. There is a connection between you and Allah. There is a connection. God is there. There is a connection. And that's when I started taking it very seriously. I started learning Surah Al-Fatiha. First without their knowledge, later with their knowledge. So I involved them in it, and I told them, yeah, I'm interested. And they did their best as much as they could to help me. They were also young guys that time.
Yeah.
And yeah, that basically the salah was the criterion where I said, yeah, that's it. That's what gives me that's what fulfills me, indeed, the salah.
What's some of the better things that I guess you approaching Moscow or non-Muslim, let's say a non-Muslim approach to Moscow, what's some of the things that you would have had them do or like them to do better to bring you towards Islam? Was there anything you found wrong with the way they approached you or the way they gave you advice?
You know, as I said, they were youngsters themselves. The one was 16, my age, and the other one that time, and the other one was 19. So these are, young boys who themselves had to learn a lot. I still have contact, mashallah, with the older one at least. I still have contact with him. And what it was, a lot of born Muslims are Muslims because of their parents. And they might love the deen. They might even pray regularly. But that's about it sometimes. That's really the closest you can get to practicing Muslim. Now, all the other things that I started reading upon, talking about Tawheed, talking about the differences, different types of Tawheed, talking about the issue of Islam itself, that was going too far for them even. I had to educate them actually. And I was learning about the tafsir of Surah Al-Fatiha, for example. That was even something that they had never thought of. Because as I said, you take it for granted. As a born Muslim, you take it for granted. I'm a Muslim because my father is a Muslim. And this is something I make a big point nowadays also in lectures. I have talks and lectures where my first question is, I would ask a born Muslim of Pakistani origin, of Turkish origin, or whatever origin they are, I would ask them, why are you Muslim? And you know that many they feel shocked with this question, like, I've never been asked that. I've never thought about this. Why am I Muslim? And I said, I give you the answer because of your parents, right? Yeah, in a way, yes, but you're right. We should not, that should not be it, because my answer should have been, I should not be Muslim then, right? So that is something that many born Muslims have not thought about. They have not thought that they were given a golden platter, and the deen was on there, and they were just basically was a gift. But also a born Muslim has to fight for it. Also a born Muslim once will stand at the crossroads and will have to decide, am I a Muslim, am I not a Muslim? Will I be practicing, will I not practice? Yeah. So these are things that even a born Muslim...
Is the perfect religion, is there another religion out there that can be, I guess, looking into Christianity, looking into Judaism, looking into other faiths, you believe that's something that we should do as well?
Yes, I believe. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And it should make you stronger as a Muslim. As it made me weaker as a Christian, it should make you stronger as a Muslim. Because when I started looking into my religion at that time, which I considered was my God-given right because I'm Greek, so I should be Orthodox, I should be Christian. And I was trying to argue with my Muslim brothers at that time. I was trying to argue something, and I couldn't argue because I didn't believe in Christianity. But just because I was Greek, I had this kind of feeling that I had to somehow protect my Christianity, my Orthodox being. And so that led me into reading about Christianity, because I didn't know anything about Christianity. I didn't know anything. I just knew Jesus, Isa alayhi salam, he died on the cross for us. That's all I knew. But I did not know everything around it. And when I started learning about what Christians and Orthodox people believe, I was like, really? They really believe that? So I myself, my fitra was saying that cannot be true. So yes, please, a Muslim should be looking into Christianity and Judaism and Buddhism and all these religions, and go back to their deen and see that the deen is a deen. We have a deen, they have religions. There's a massive difference. If you look at this, Islam is a deen. Now, the translation of religion is wrong. I would rather say it's a way of life. Let's call it something like that. A way of life, meaning that even if the way I sit here, even if I speak to you, the way I speak, what I say, how I speak, if I wanted to drink, I would drink with my right hand. All this is part of our deen. This is absolutely not the case in Christianity. Christianity is really a Sunday religion. A religion, you go to church, you have a priest who will tell you everything because they know everything. They're the clergy, you know nothing. Whereas in Islam, we don't have clergy, alhamdulillah, in contrast to Turkey. That's another issue. Again, we're going to talk about this one. So this whole imam issue and imam hatib schools in Turkey or whatever, that's something that is not part of Islam, actually, of real Islam, of the origin of Islam. So I'm totally against this clergialization of Islam, especially in Turkey and in certain parts. But we as Muslims, Islam, we don't have priests.
Do you think that the reason why Turks aren't, you're saying that they're not as practicing, is because, would it have something to do with those imamatic schools? So some of those imams that obviously come out from those schools, that do you think they're affected by going through those schools? Like, what do you think it is?
Well, look, first of all, it has to do with history. It has to do with the way that Turkey became Turkey in 1923. I mean, before it was the Ottoman Empire, not only that Minor Asia was it was much, much bigger. So the Ottoman Empire was a massive empire spreading over 3 continents, it was a multicultural, multi-religious, multi-ethnic, multi-linguistic empire. Now, Turkey did the opposite. It wanted to become one nation, one language, one people, one religion. Okay, so that is it's the opposite of what the Ottoman Empire was and actually wanted to be, because it was the center of the Ummah. We should not forget Constantinople, Istanbul was the center of the Ummah. It was the last caliphate on earth. So the Ottoman Empire was a massively important empire and caliphate for us as Muslims, the last one on earth. Yeah. So that later, when Turkey became Turkey as a nation with the ideas of France, the French Revolution, the French ideas and ideology of being a nation, when nationalism became exchanged religion, exchanged the deen, and until nowadays, nationalism is actually something that, the flag is for many Turks even more important than the deen. So it is unfortunately, sorry?
So it's become more nationalistic. It's become more.
Yes, absolutely. And this is where the problem starts already. If you exchange the deen for nationalism, they cannot be on the same level. So if you exchange them, then that's where the problem is. And you have a very big amount in Turkey of people who basically don't practice, don't pray, don't make salah. And this is one of the basic pillars of Islam. If you forget the 5 pillars of Islam, what do you have then as being a Muslim? You can call yourself being a Muslim, but you're just a cultural Muslim or a Muslim who has inherited some kind of Muslim background. But a Muslim is somebody who prays 5 times a day, who intends to go for Hajj once in his lifetime, pays zakat, all the 5 pillars of Islam. So if you don't do that, then that's a question. That's not me saying that. That's Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam saying that. When he was asked who is a Muslim, he said it's somebody who prays 5 times a day. So all this has affected the change of the Ottoman Empire becoming Turkey, has affected people living in Turkey nowadays very, very much. They are absolutely wonderful people. MashaAllah, I've been to Turkey several times. I love Turkey. I myself would love to actually even move to Turkey, especially Istanbul. But there is unfortunately the influence of the secularism. And by the way, there are 2 countries that are secular in the world, that are stern secular, which is France, as we see, and Turkey. So these 2 countries are secular, fascist secular, basically, I would say. And we see it in France very strongly. We know that. Which is even stronger and more fascist than the Turkish nationalism. So it affects people. It affects people's mindset even. And I mean, how much, we don't have to go further than France. We see already how strong this influence is on people. And that's what happens, unfortunately, in Turkey. And what they have done is basically developing a kind of clergy, like on the Byzantine Empire, by the way, from the Greek side, the Orthodox at that time, which they admired very much. So unfortunately, what happened is they developed a Turkish Islam which is closer to the Orthodox Church than it is actually to Islam.
Oh, okay. I never saw it like that.
Yes. Even if you go for Fajr, go in the morning to Turkey, to a Turkish mosque. Yeah. And Fajr sounds actually what they do. They have some kind of people in the back who are saying something, I mean, I don't know this kind of liturgy. And that sounds like being in a Greek church, in an Orthodox church. So that I found dangerous, because Islam is pure and should be kept pure. And if you change it, then you change your whole being, actually. And this is what's happening in Turkey. And alhamdulillah,
I think it's not only Turkey. I think it's happening all around the world, with the different sects, the different groups, the different scholars coming out having different opinions all the time, I guess, with how people should be a Muslim. Do you think it's become far worse than it's ever been in terms of being so divided?
Well, nationalism is the biggest cancer in the Muslim world. Not only in the world, but in the Muslim world even more so. Yeah. And it's not only the Turks who are nationalists. You have nationalist Egyptians, you have nationalist Moroccans, you have nationalist Tunisians, and so on. You have Arabs, you have Africans, you have Asians, you have nationalist Pakistanis. Believe it or not, Pakistan was built on being actually the country for Muslims to move to. And now it has become just a failed state. So if you look at all that, it can disappoint you as a Muslim. And if you don't look at Islam as what Islam is, and my journey was quite long, it didn't happen overnight. And I had to look into these things. I even decided to go to Morocco for a while, because I thought I'm going to a Muslim country. I learned something from the Muslims. I was naive, expecting to see Sahabi walking on the street in Morocco. So that obviously was not the case. And I got disappointed several times. But I always turned back to Islam, the sources, Quran and Sunnah. And if I had not had that, if that had not been Islam, then I would have left Islam for long already. So yes, we have to look around and understand, basically, we have to look into Islam. And alhamdulillah, one very important thing in contrast to all the other religions is that Islam has clear sources. It is the Quran, which nobody doubts in the world. There is one Quran, alhamdulillah, in contrast to 10,000 Bibles. And the Sunnah, which we might have difference of opinion in the Sunnah, but in general, the Sunnah is clear. We pray according to the Sunnah. We don't pray, the way we make Salah 5 times a day, that's according to the way that Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam made his Salah, and so on and so on. So with the way we fast is the way he fasted. So this is something that is extremely important. So we have clear sources. And we should always go back to everything else that we see. If somebody does that in Egypt, if somebody does this in Turkey, if somebody does this in Yemen, who cares, to be very honest? I've learned to have this attitude. Who cares what Arabs do, Turks do, Indonesians do? Who cares? In the end, Islam is what Islam is, not what certain Muslims do. And this is something we have to come to. And it's a difficult issue, especially when you come from another background. It's not an easy thing to come to terms with that, that you will be exploited when you're in the Muslim world, that you will be maybe even robbed if you're in a Muslim, that you will be lied to, and all these things happen. All these things happen. I've lived in Morocco, I've been in Egypt, I've been in Turkey, I've been in many places, and all this happened to me.
Dr. Stef, but have you always, like, from being very young, been interested in history, been interested into, you know, learning about religions and languages and things like that? Because if I'm not mistaken, you've studied I can't even say it now, political science, and I think you're a professor in political science. Is that correct?
I'm not a professor yet, but
Yeah.
inshallah, I'm moving towards the direction. I have taught at universities and lectures, and I have given lectures at colleges and everything. Yes, I loved history indeed all my life. I did love history. That's absolutely true. I did love history, and I had an affinity towards it. I always wanted to learn about the history of the world. As I said, I was quite open-minded, and I wanted other cultures, other civilizations, other peoples. I wanted to learn their culture, their civilization, their languages. If possible, I wanted to learn all languages in the world. And alhamdulillah, I've come to 7 now. Alhamdulillah, these are the main European languages, which has given me, has opened me, has opened my mind actually to sources and to find out more about other people indeed. And it has worked, alhamdulillah. I mean, I know several languages in Europe, and these languages help me to learn more still on a daily basis. And I'm learning Turkish, by the way, at the moment. I've been learning for the last year. But it's different I'm 48 now. And when I started learning languages, I was pretty much a baby, basically, learning English, learning German and Greek at the same time. And then later, from 15 on, my next language was actually English, and then it was Spanish, French, and so on. So I was young, and it was easy. Now it's a bit more difficult, honestly. I have too much on my mind now.
Yeah, it's like that, isn't it? The older you get, the more kind of too much in there. I understand that. Well, I look. Go ahead.
Unfortunately, I'm saying I would love to, if I could, had I learned Turkish that time when I was 16, 17, I would have most probably mastered it as I do master English.
How many languages do you know?
Well, look, 7 main European and Arabic. So 7 main languages. Amazing. European languages, including Dutch, which is where I lived in Holland for 5 years.
Yeah.
So I had the chance to learn Dutch when I was in Amsterdam. My wife is from Holland, so.
They say if you can learn Arabic, you can learn really any language. Apparently, Arabic's the most difficult language to learn.
Arabic and Chinese. Arabic and Chinese. I mean, Cantonese. Yeah, indeed. These are extremely difficult languages. Yes, they are. They are.
Yeah, look, you're in Europe, so let's talk a little bit about what's happening in Europe at the moment with all these terrorist attacks, and we've seen Macron come out and talk really bad towards our religion. He's kind of turned it away from the terrorists and the sick people to Islam having a problem. What do you think? What do you think's happening? What do you think's happening in France at the moment?
It's not happening at the moment. It has been happening ever since, actually. France has had a problem with Islam and the Muslims pretty much from the beginning of France being France. First of all, we have to really go.
How far back are we talking?
How far back are we talking? Well, look, first of all, France as a country, as a nation, they defined themselves after 1789, basically, after the French Revolution. But long before, in the territory which is called France nowadays, there used to be, believe it or not now, the 9th and 10th centuries, there used to be a place called Fractinet in Arabic. Okay. That in the south of France, which is at the Côte d'Azur, which was a place where Muslims from Al-Andalus went and settled. And they created a territory, calling it Faractionet in Arabic, so Fractinet, so the country of the Franks, basically, or the Frankish area. So there, they settled and they established a base. From that base, I mean, they were still connected to Al-Andalus, meaning Spain and Portugal. And from there, they went all the way through North Italy, or Northern Italy, and they opened the country of Switzerland. So in the south of Switzerland, in the 9th and 10th centuries, there used to be Swiss Muslims living in an Islamic state, in a Muslim country in the south of Italy and Switzerland, where they nowadays speak French and Italian. Subhanallah. Yeah. So basically, the time of Al-Andalus, especially between the 9th and the 10th centuries, we see clearly that this fractionné that developed that time had an influence even on French culture. If you consider nowadays troubadours, the troubadours, you must have heard of them. The troubadours, these people who are poets, the medieval poets of France, which is part of their culture, right? If you learn French, and if you learn their language and culture, you have to come across the medieval troubadours. These troubadours were poets. Now, they developed after the 10th century. Why? Because that's when the Muslims left it behind and left Fractionné, France. They left poetry and the idea of, singing and the harp and the guitar, which was developed in Al-Andalus, they left all this behind in France. If you look at ceramic tiles, for example, the way that in southern France, especially their culture, it's Islamic culture. The Muslims have left in the 9th and 10th centuries already. They have left Islamic elements behind in French culture, and even in the language, there are certain words that come from Arabic from that time. What happened later, of course, colonialism takes over. The French become stronger as a nation, as a power, become a superpower basically in the 17th, 18th century, and colonize Africa and Asia. I mean, more than half of Africa was colonized by the French. The other half was English and a little bit Portuguese. And then you have in Asia, of course, a lot of influence as well. So the French come across the Muslims there, especially North Africa. They make Algeria, for example, a département. That means a part of France. So it's not only a colony, but it becomes a part of, it's like a state. Like you have the United States, 50 of them. So the 51st state becomes the Philippines, for example. So for that, the same idea. So you make another state outside of France, which is part of France. So citizens of Algeria.
Is that how it is in Algeria now? Is that part of France?
Well, Algeria was part of France until 1961, until it became independent.
Yeah.
Okay. So in the 60s. And when it became independent, this war scarred France and the connections that they had with the Muslim world until nowadays. So Algeria is a country which for the French was France, and they dared revolting against us. We gave them civilization, the light of Europe and the European culture. How dare they, how dare these Muslims, these people from the desert coming up and fighting us? And in the end, winning, be the victors over us. So that is a scar, that is a problem. France's Vietnam was Algeria, and they have not forgotten until nowadays. And suddenly these people who were in Algeria came over to France, many of them, and were allowed, according to the French, to come over to France, settle in France. 70% of the Muslims living in France come originally from North Africa, mainly Algeria. So we put them all in banlieues, in these outskirts of the city. So let them all be there. And they don't get jobs. They get discriminated against on a daily basis. The hijab is not allowed at schools and universities and in public places. So a discriminatory behavior towards Islam and the Muslims since day one. And now we're talking about Macron. It's not a Macron issue. Macron is just a child of the Republic. 1905 is when France basically became a secular, laic republic, a republic which basically considers itself as being as having religion put somewhere in a corner. Religion as in Christianity, yes, I can understand, because indeed Christianity kept them back from progress. But Islam brought progress. And if you look at Al-Andalus, and if you look at where the Muslims were ruling once before, Baghdad, Damascus, and the big Muslim empires, you see that Islam actually developed the nations rather than keeping them back. But Christianity in Europe and in France did keep them back. No doubt about it. So I can understand that people who are progressively minded and have progressive thoughts, they actually think that religion will keep you back. But what they mean is Christianity. But please do not put Christianity on the same level with Islam. Islam is a deen again. It's a deen, it's a way of life. It's not a religion. And during the time that Islam was ruling, it was a progress for the nations who had accepted Islam and not keeping them back at all.
You see, look, I see when something like this happens in France, they expect the whole entire Muslim world to, get together, condemn the actions, and we've seen them do that in the past. We've seen, some of the Muslim leaders, for example, Tayyip and a couple of other, leaders around the world come together in France, and go for a walk against some of the actions that are taking place with terrorism. But it's just like it's ongoing. It's every time something happens, it's like they expect the Muslims to apologize for it. And what I've found in the French history, and maybe you can elaborate on this a little bit, is that in Algeria, they killed 1 million Muslims. And they've done this apparently in other parts of Africa as well. I mean, how bad was it? How bad were the French? And have they apologized for their actions in the past?
It was very bad, question number one. Question number two, they have never apologized. They would never do that. There would be this superiority complex that the French have, and the Europeans in general, but the French particularly, specifically, would not allow a person to go to inferior in their mindset people and go and apologize. They would never do that. So an African in general, Algerian, Nigerian, or South African, whatever, Senegalese, for the French, they are inferior in religion, especially when they're Muslims. They're inferior in culture and civilization because they took it upon themselves to actually have to go and educate and civilize people in the world out there. They thought that their mindset was in the 17th, 18th century for the French. It was not only colonizing a country, meaning going and impose your law on them, but also imposing your culture, civilization, and anything, and your language on them. Whereas the British did not do that. For the French, it was more important being in a country and colonizing their mind instead of colonizing the country. Whereas the British colonized the country, meaning they would take resources from the country, but they would allow the chiefs and the main politician to be there, indirect rule, right? Whereas the French wanted this direct rule. That means they wanted you to become French in many ways. But if you are black already, you cannot become French, never in their eyes. So you can try to speak like the French, as many, I know African people who speak better French than French people. They are well educated, have a PhD and whatever, and then they go back to Africa, to Senegal, to wherever, and basically they're still Africans. So, and in France, they're treated like Africans because that's what they are. So this mission, the mission of teaching civilization abroad, is something that is up here. It's a superiority complex. So that's why you will find that people of other ethnicities, being from another continent in France, having a hard time. You know, they're having a hard time in France. I mean, they can try to assimilate as much as they want to. It will not work. You know, and integration is wanted in Islam, is wished, but assimilation is haram. Because if you become like them, then you have to lose your deen, you have to lose everything that has to do with your background, and especially if you're Muslim, with being Muslim. So that's something we cannot do. And we are not.
You said, what do you think we should do? You know, some of the people in France that have to deal with, you know, racism and Islamophobia, how do you think they should handle it when something like this happens very recently in France?
Again, it's not a recent thing. This has been going on. Ask them, the people who grew up in France, the people who went to schools there, second and third generation. In the meanwhile, we're even a fourth and fifth generation. So now these people have to understand that they are not accepted by French society because of their background being African, being Muslim, being whatever. So they have to understand that if they're standing at a crossroad. Is it now Islam that I have to decide, or being in France? Unfortunately, they've come to that point. I would say that personally, they've come to that point that they have to decide and make up their mind. Will I stay in France and fear for my children later, for myself and for my children? Security, first of all, for my security. Second of all, I fear for my Islam, and I fear for my children's upbringing. So, or is it better maybe to go to North Africa, or to Africa where I come from originally? Or, I mean, we should not forget we have still nearly 1 million converts, French. What are they going to do? But let's say the immigrants, shouldn't they decide to have a kind of balance act in between their original home country and France? I think, unfortunately, they are pushed to do that. And
yeah,
so
they are a little push. Definitely, they're a little pushed to do that. And you're saying there's 1 million reverts in France.
Yes.
So my understanding of Muslims, from looking, you know, Google and finding some information, is 10% of the French are Muslims. However, I've spoken to someone that's French, and he believes a lot more. He believes, you know, 20%, 25% maybe of.
Okay, the official numbers, they're between 4 and 8 million French Muslims.
Okay.
Now, France has around between 4 and 8 million. France has around a population of around 60 million. So that is definitely more than 10% if you take the higher number. If you take 8 million, that's more than 10%.
Yeah.
Now, out of them, 70% are North Africans, meaning Algerians, Tunisians, Moroccans. Then another 10% sub-Saharan Africans, which makes it 80% already. And then another 10% Muslim reverts, converts, so French people themselves. But it is a very difficult number to find out, of course, because who will come out in France and say, I'm a Muslim and be proud? I mean, alhamdulillah, converts actually do that. They don't care. But it's still something that many people still keep in secret. So they say that the number of reverts in France is between 500,000 to 1 million. Yeah. And I do believe it's 1 million because indeed I've met a lot of French brothers, a lot of French sisters abroad, especially abroad. Many of them leave France as soon as they become Muslim. They can't stay in this country, and I cannot blame them. So I've met a lot of French brothers abroad in the Emirates, in Saudi, in Istanbul. I've met a lot of French brothers, mashallah. So I think at this moment, I don't see another solution really. I mean, there are organizations nowadays, there are institutions that have been set up by Muslims, by French Muslims, who are trying to fight for their rights because they do have rights, subhanAllah. You are European Muslim, you know, you have rights in Europe, but these rights are being taken away every day. They're being hacked off. And anytime there is, as you said, a terrorist attack, a so-called terrorist attack, immediately, without even any evidence, they just go and say it was the Muslims. It was an Islamist or Islamic terrorism. Although in these cases now, for example, we've seen also the case of the priest. Have you heard of that case? There was an Orthodox priest, by the way, who was shot, I think, and it was a personal issue, vendetta between him and another priest. So that was also first considered an Islamist attack, but they had to retreat it and basically say, no, it was not. But nobody talks about it. Nobody even knows about this case. That happened shortly after the incident that happened with the beheading of the teacher. So Vienna now, we don't know what happened in Vienna yesterday. I have no idea. What I know, what I've seen is that there's a lot of police on the street. Something happened close to a synagogue, again, that seemed to be important for them to mention. So for that reason, they immediately say it was an Islamist or Islamic attack or terrorist. But at this moment, there is no evidence for it, at least at this moment. I don't know. Okay. So unfortunately, yes, Islam is under siege, especially in Europe. There is no doubt about it. The Muslims are under siege. There's no doubt about it. And we have to think in Europe, we have to really think what to do. Especially France. I could not imagine living in France. I could not imagine even visiting France. I would not. For years already, I boycott France from myself already. I'm not going to Paris. I don't do anything in France and in French. I've been to Belgium, but that's the closest I would go to.
We're seeing a lot of that movement now all over Facebook, you know, boycotting France. And we've heard President Erdogan, I keep mentioning him, but he has come out and he has said, boycott their products in Turkey, boycott their products around the world. So, yeah, I kind of agree, I guess, in that way, especially if they're under attack, Muslims are under attack there. We need to, as Muslims from the outside, do our part and not visit or not buy their products.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is definitely one of the actions we can take. I just hope it's going to last for longer. It's not going to be a one week, 1 month thing, and then it disappears suddenly. Then everybody goes back to taking buying makeup from France and all this stuff. So I really hope that it lasts for a while, because again, it's not something. I've been saying that already for years now. France should have been boycotted as a country by Muslims. Muslims should not be in France. We should actually really shun this country because it has given us enough grief in the Muslim world already. Going to support their factories and industry, you know, I would not do that. Buying their products, no. I would not buy Peugeot, I would not buy Renault, I would not buy Citroën, none of these cars, you know, definitely not. Never, actually.
We've seen the president also, you know, with the tension between Greece and Turkey over the Mediterranean, get involved as well, you know, trying to, I guess, show a bit of anger towards Turkey of what they're doing. So it's always them against the Muslims. I think you're right.
Well, don't forget one thing. I mean, there's real politics as well, right? Don't forget that in the past, if we take a look at history again, and we should learn from history, I keep saying, it's not an empty slogan, I mean it. Um, if you look at, there was once a time when the Ottoman Empire was fighting with France, okay? So there was once a time that it happened. The Ottomans were even allowed actually to dock at one of the ports, and was, if I remember correctly, Marseille. They were actually there for a year during the winter. If I remember correctly, they stayed even, they stayed a winter there. They were allowed to stay there basically, and they made out of a cathedral a mosque. Okay, so there was this was the real politics, right? Although most of the times it was the Ottomans fighting with the British against the French, but there was also times when the Ottomans saw rather a cooperation or collaboration with France against the British, against others. So these things happen throughout history. Let's not be naive again. We have to look at real politics, actually. The same, what's happening now all over. If it's beneficial for a certain country to be with a certain country, then they're not going to look at religion. They're going to look at real politics nowadays. There is nothing like that. There is nothing like, let's support the Muslims. And you mentioned it right. We should, of course, we have more than 50 Muslim countries in the world. They should all, if they all stood together and they all condemned what happened in France, France would have apologized already the very same evening.
Well, the Arab, was it the Arab, it's like a NATO. I've been hearing that a little bit lately. The
Organization of Arab countries, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. It hasn't worked. I mean, why do you think that?
Have you heard anything from them? Have you heard anything from them? They're not united at all. You have the Arabs fighting against each other. Qatar with Turkey fighting against the Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and UAE. So you see amongst themselves, they're not even united as Arabs, as ethnic nation. Imagine that. So what about Islam? They are not interested in that. So if they were, as I said, France would have apologized on the same evening, would have taken everything back on the same evening. So no, unfortunately, we're not strong. We're not an ummah anymore. The idea of the ummah is great, but it is theory at the moment. Inshallah, we have to work towards it. That's our task. And it starts at home, Akhi. It starts with your children. I have 7 children, mashallah. And my family, we've been trying with my wife, mashallah, to educate them in Islam, to make them understand what it means to be an ummah, to make them understand that we are all brothers and sisters in the world. But let's not be naive, let's be realistic, and let's see that it doesn't work at this moment. At this moment, it's not there because everybody has their own interest in heart rather than your interest as well. So as it should be, they know the theory, but they also know that, hey, do not get fooled by what's happening out there. So we're trying to educate them in a realistic way.
Definitely. That's very important, brother, I guess. Brother, Dr. Stef, look, we've been speaking for a while. I do want to get into other topics, but I guess we can do it on the next episode, inshallah. I want to talk a little bit about Turkey and Greece. That's probably a whole podcast just there.
Definitely.
Sorry?
Definitely. We have to. The Ottoman Empire, the influence on Greece, on the Balkan, what has happened actually, what has been happening until nowadays. History tells you basically why the problem is there. History will tell you, most of the times you will find the questions answered in history. And this is what pushed me also towards history so much. I loved history the whole time, but history itself also gave me a glimpse of Islam, Islamic identity. And that's what also pushed me towards Islam, by the way. So it was not only the theological background of Islam, but it was also history that pushed me towards Islam very strongly, actually, and opened my eyes. And I've written a book, by the way. I don't know if it's interesting for your viewers, but my book is in English as well as in German available, The Islamic History of Europe. And if you take a look at it,
it's in German or
it's in both German and in English.
Okay, so we got it in English. Okay,
yeah. So the Islamic History of Europe, and I have seen quite some orders, mashallah, coming from Australia, because as you mentioned before, there's quite a big Greek Australian population, and some of them, mashallah, have become Muslims. And I know that there is even a Greek Muslim association in Melbourne, as far as I remember. And I'm hoping, inshallah, maybe I have a chance once to come and visit you guys down there. and see you all in person. You see me in person and touch me, because I know very many times it's like, are you really Greek? It happens to me in Germany. They ask me, are you sure you don't have like grandparents who are like Turkish or something? Believe me, no, it's not. It's like this, yeah. So maybe it's a chance that we get, inshallah, to get to know myself and actually the Australian community down there. So yeah,
I pray for that to happen, inshallah, brother. Hopefully you will come down. Hopefully we will see you. And I'm very interested in that book, so hopefully I'll be the first one here to order it, inshallah, and have a read. Look, until next time, I wish you all the best. Enjoy England. Enjoy the day while we enjoy our sleep.
Yes, you're going to sleep now, right?
Exactly.
You're going to. Yes, we will stay in touch, inshallah. Let me know. We will have to do some episodes, inshallah, with regards to the history of our countries, mashallah. And I think that will open your eyes to many things, to what's happening around us and what's going on. Really, as I said, the questions are answered in history, no doubt about it.
Definitely. Thank you so much for coming on, and to all our viewers, until next time, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
See you, brother.